right. How are you in this beautiful now moment? It's almost like there's an eternal amount beyond numbers of now moments, which is divine intelligence. And this is what you really are, right? This is you. And today, we're going to go over a very important topic, which is, I think, what everybody is looking for, and that is how to be happy. So first we got to find out what the drag is. What is it that's blocking us from being happy? Why can't we just be happy? Like, isn't that natural? Isn't that our actual self? Let's take a look. All right. This is what I feel is a potentiality on how to be happy. If you resonate, then I'm glad. If you don't, I'm also glad. So, because my happiness is not depending on something outside of me. See where I'm going with this teaching? So, there's your mind. And I've found that it is always your mind that is the block to being happy. And if you know by now that these teachings I'm presenting, I've already talked about how happiness is our real self, how happiness is our being, and that is our ever present reality. Right? So happiness is always present because it's before the mind rises, right? Happiness is before thought. It's before emotion. And it happens to be that a lot of these emotions that we have and that flow through us throughout our life, it seems that a lot of these emotions are the blockage, right? That cloud. What I'm saying though is that happiness never changes. It's rock-like. And I would say another word for happiness is God. Whoa, that's interesting. I remember this saying, good, orderly direction. So when you're following the good, orderly direction, then you are usually a happy person. Because you're living in alignment with the goodness of life, which is God is good. You know, God is kind. God is loving. But it's the mind, right? Or we could call it the ego mind or the EMI, the ego mind identity, or the electromagnetic interference. So we talked about the incoherence of the ego mind. And that is what is blocking our happiness, and especially our identification with identifying with changing mind. Right? This is actually at the root, the only blockage. Because the moment, the instant, and it only takes one instant, because it's actually always happening, is that you basically, all you got to do is you got to stop identifying with the changing mind, and you will realize that happiness is, right? Is the now. Happiness is always available. I found in my life that happiness is equal, it's neutral, and it's the divine middle way, right? Happiness to me is living in the state of non-duality, and that the moment that you start to identify with duality, you've now identified with the mind and then the body, and then you're basically on a spiral downwards into the lower emotions, which very easily, as we all know, how each thought will then trigger an emotion, and then there's this constant loop, right? Thinking, feeling, thinking, feeling, thinking, feeling, thinking, feeling. And if you're thinking from this place of feeling identified with your thoughts, then we know that a lot of these thoughts that most beings are choosing to entertain are thoughts of fear, anxiety. You know, I don't really want to admit it, but I'm here admitting it, that I am aware of the mind, right? And what I've realized over the years is that we all share a very similar mind or a very similar ego, right? It's like somebody that's saying, oh, like, I liked that movie. We went to the movie theater. And then the other friend is like, oh, yeah, I like that too. Like, that was a great movie. And then it's like, oh, I don't like that. I don't. Or it's like, oh, I don't like vanilla, but I like chocolate. It's like, have you actually asked yourself, who is the I you're referring to? Seriously, like, this is the most, right? I'm gonna put important. This is extremely important in life in general. I'm not even teaching you spirituality, or I'm not coming across as this being that knows this and that, and like I'm a spiritual teacher. No, I actually don't feel that way. This is just a life fact and a life skill, right? We can even bring it down a notch and call it like self-development. It doesn't have to be framed as this like divine spirituality, right? Although, like, you know, that's what it is. It's also the same thing, because the self is divine, and this is exactly what we are, and we are of the spirit, and we're always developing. So whether you want to call it like mindset training, or, you know, spiritual practice, or your sadhana, this is all up to you. But what I've realized is that it's very important, as we're going back here, to understand who the I that you're referring to is when you're speaking. Because what I've noticed is that there's the real I, which is what we talked about, divine intelligence, right? And then we could say there's the false I. And we could go with saying, right, we called it the EMI. This usually has a pretty we'll just call it the ego mind identity. This right here is a pretty negative signal overall. You know, like this one, in what I've witnessed by this programmed, you know, we can name all of the nasty things about what this produces: violence, hate, anger, fear, all of these incoherent, disharmonious, discord thoughts and feelings. So this is a very negative loop usually. Of course, yes, you may ask, Stephen, why? But it's not always negative. Like, I have positive thoughts. Absolutely. But they're still thoughts. They're still changing, right? It's still dualistic. And dualism is also divine. I'm not separating these two. I've also talked about in teachings how the mind is extremely powerful and that you have to harness it and almost utilize it where you're not a slave to it, but it is now serving you in good ways because you've realized that you are the I am. You found out your real I, which is awareness. And then from that place, which is harmony itself, you know, then you're in the heart. And when you follow the heart's guidance, it's a very good place to be. When you only listen to what your heart's telling you and taking that next action step based on what your heart's telling you, this is how we heal. So, I want you to ask, while I erase this board, who am I? Because this all relates to happiness. Because at the end of the day, all the teachers are teaching one thing. And that, my friends, is how to be happy. How to be happy. Well, what I feel is that how to be happy is being in complete trust, faith, surrender, devotion, alignment, presence. These are all synonyms for the same thing, which is your real I. These are all natural traits of your real self. This is you, the eye of awareness, the eye of God, the eye of the I. All right, so I talked about disidentifying, starting to pull back your attention and you could even talk to yourself and be like, who am I? If I'm not my thoughts, then I must be the one that's prior. I am the awareness in which the thoughts are appearing. This is the teaching of all teachings, and in the sense of getting it straight, right? Like really sorting things out where you're like, okay, you know, this man must be telling me something that's true. But I'm going to keep thinking again. But what about that thing that happened? What about that? No, just stop everything and you'll be happy. So all of the masters are teaching how to be happy. Right? So you may already be happy. But if there's anything in your life that you feel like is still blocking you from feeling that happiness, then I would ask you, who is this I that you're referring to? In the moment that I dissolves, just like salt, right? You have this glass of water here, and you pour some salt, this is the This is let's say the false I, and that comes in, pouring in, and then it dissolves. Or another word is it merges. That moment that merge happens is when happiness is there, like, oh, now I can show myself again. But if you don't merge your false I and let it dissolve into that infinite oceanic water of the I am presence, then you'll never touch real happiness. Because if you've noticed in your life, the delusion of desire. So desire is actually, it's a good thing if you hold it in the right context. If you have a desire to be kind, if you have a desire to, go work out or care for your body in good ways, like these are healthy desires. If you have a desire to serve, knowing that we're one and what you give is what you receive, this is a good desire. But the desires that come from the EMI, these usually don't have anything to do with your real self and what you really want. Because what you really want at the end of the day is happiness. I feel that everybody is looking for happiness. They're just not looking in the right place, because what's looking is what you're looking for, and what's looking, which is the ever-present awareness, is happiness itself. Because it's always the I am presence that is happiness and is even allowing for life to unfold and for you to be this human that's experiencing all of these things. The next meal. Think about this one. You're through the day, you're just chilling, and you have the thought, breakfast time. Wow. If that makes you feel happy, that's amazing. And then you go eat breakfast. And then breakfast is done. And then you go about your day, next thought, dinner or lunchtime. And then you're like, oh, I'm happy. But you're depending on, you're broadcasting or you're projecting into the future as it's going to be breakfast that makes me happy. It's going to be the next time I have a sexual experience. It's going to be the next time I play that video game or watch that movie. That's all beautiful. These are all expressions of the divine artist of God, which we're experiencing. And the dilemma is when you forget that happiness is present, and it's actually the field in which all of these other things and experiences are occurring. So really the root of my message here before we finish up is that happiness is already what you are. Let me say that again. Happiness is already what you are. No thing, no thought, no person, no event is going to make you happy. Because pure awareness, God consciousness, is happy just being itself. Because the bliss, the true life, is within this realization and this recognition that I am happiness itself. And when I know who I am, I rest and I abide as the self, which is the happiness prior to worlds, happiness prior to densities, happiness prior to dimensions. The same happiness that I feel in my heart right now is the same happiness that I have felt in my heart 5 lives ago and 5 lives in the future. Because in fact, there is no past, there is no future. There is only one eternal now, and that is happiness. So, leaving it on that note, we now return how to be happy. I have one rule: do nothing. Leaving you in the love and in the light. Enjoy this now moment. Oh wait, it needs a mouth. And okay, he looks in distress. Let me make him happy. Greetings, family. I just want to thank you for supporting the channel of whatever is flowing through this vessel. And if you could click the subscribe button, that would be super helpful. Apparently, a lot of beings that come onto this channel don't subscribe. So if you're open to that, it will only benefit all of us, and the amplification of this information, if you're in resonance with the teachings of unity, love, and kindness and connection, and all of these natural traits that are inherent to our real self. If you're in resonance with this message and the videos that I have been sharing, then subscribing to the channel would be super, super awesome. And I am eternally grateful for your presence and for the presence of the Master within us all. One love, family. See you soon. Shoo!